everybody. Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Post. I'm Sid Rosenberg for OpenSports.com and the National Football Post. If you're tuning in today, that probably means you are still alive in your fantasy league. And with Week 16 likely meaning championship time, let's welcome in my main man, Joe Fortenbaugh, the great fantasy expert at NF Post, to help you get your lineup set for a big championship weekend. Joe, how are you, pal?
Hey, Sid, it's a great week. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Fantasy football championship time is here. Nothing better.
Nothing better. And, of course, you got the little Santa hat on there, bringing some cheer and some joy to our viewers and listeners out there. Joe, as always, doing the right thing. Now, ridiculous performance last week, Joe, out of Jerome Harrison of the Browns. This on Sunday against the Chiefs. This coming Sunday, he's got the Raiders. You say if you have him, start him again.
Yes, he's an excellent start, and we talked about him a few weeks ago, Sid. We said Jerome Harrison, he's an excellent pickup for specifically these two games here at the end of the year. Number one, what you saw against Kansas City, 280-plus yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, excellent fantasy performance, third highest single-game rushing total of all time. So get him in the lineup this weekend against the Oakland defense. Cleveland's at home. They're going to feed him the rock. Oakland ranks in the bottom 5 in points allowed to opposing fantasy running backs this year, so make sure he's in the lineup. Also look to Jason Snelling from the Atlanta Falcons. He won the lottery this week. Whoever goes against the Buffalo Bills, they are the absolute worst defense in the league when it comes to the run. They rank 32nd against the run, and no defense has given up more points to opposing fantasy running backs. So make sure now that Michael Turner's hurt, could be done for the year, make sure Snelling is in your lineup.
All right, Joe, on the flip side, you say to sit the combo of Julius Jones and Justin Forsett in Seattle, plus Washington's Quentin Ganther, who did get a touchdown against the Giants on Monday, but you're saying bench all 3 of those guys.
Yeah. Ganther's garbage touchdown late in the game didn't mean much. They're going to have a very tough matchup against the Dallas unit that's very physical at the point of attack. Jay Ratliff, the nose tackle, anchors that inside of the offensive line, or defensive line, I should say. Dallas was very physical, very impressive against Pierre Thomas and the Saints last week. Look for that to continue against the Washington offense that's very much struggled with protections and run blocking schemes this year. So make sure Ganther's out of your lineup. He's got a very tough matchup. 7-6 game last time these two teams played, so keep Ganther on the sidelines. In addition, Forsett and Jones, they're each other's own worst enemy. They're splitting carries. They're costing each other time. Jones is injured. He's going to be playing a little banged up if he goes at all. But this is a matchup on the road at Green Bay. Tough environment. They've got a banged up offensive line in Seattle. In addition, Green Bay ranks in the top 3 in terms of stopping fantasy running backs. Least amount of points allowed, top 3. Keep Forsett and Jones on the sideline.
All right, Joe, on to the wide receivers. You're telling me after riding Reggie Wayne of the Colts and Steve Smith of the Giants all season long, owners should possibly explore other options coming up this week.
Yeah, you want to keep Reggie Wayne on the sidelines for sure this week. 2 reasons for that. Colts are 14-0. They might shut the players down for the week. They might shut them down for a half. Jim Caldwell, head coach of the Colts, has been very, questionable. He hasn't let anyone know what the exact plans are, but the Colts have nothing left to play for unless they want to go for the undefeated record. So Wayne might not play a full game, number 1. Number 2, they've got the Jets this weekend. That means Wayne gets Darrelle Revis. Revis has locked down everybody this year. We talk about it every week. Held Roddy White to 3 fantasy points last week. He's been doing it all season long. So keep Reggie Wayne away from your lineup this weekend. He's not going to be able to help. In addition, Steve Smith going up against the Carolina Panthers. Panthers have struggled this year, but they have 2 excellent corners in Richard Marshall and Chris Gamble. This team ranks 2nd in the league in terms of fantasy pass defense in the amount of points they give up to opposing wide receivers each week. So keep Steve Smith on the sideline.
All right, may not be good news for the Giants who come off the big win against Washington on Monday. Meanwhile, Joe, here's receivers you like. Normally say they have tough matchups, but not so much the case lately. Talking about Derek Mason and Mike Sims-Walker of the Jaguars.
Great matchup for Mason this week, and he's been on fire lately. 3 touchdowns in his last 4 games. Joe Flacco, quarterback, coming off a career game against the Bears last week, 4 touchdown passes. They're traveling to Pittsburgh to play a Steelers team that surprisingly has struggled big time against the pass this year and big time against opposing wide receivers. Look for Mason to see plenty of targets, especially the 2 things to keep in mind. 1, will Troy Polamalu play? And 2, what's the weather like in Pittsburgh? If you got a good weather matchup and Polamalu's out, make sure Mason is starting for you. He's been red hot lately. Mike Sims-Walker, the Jaguars, another one you've got to keep an eye on. He's been hot, scored last week against the Colts, had a very nice game, travels to New England to take on a pass defense that ranks in the bottom 10 in terms of points allowed to opposing wide receivers. But the key here is David Garrard. Only 1 touchdown pass in 6 road games this year. This game is at Foxborough. Playoff implications on the line. I'm expecting the Jaguars to step up and at least show some guts and make this game close. So keep Sims-Walker in the lineup, but keep that in mind as well.
A couple of quarterbacks here. You say you want to start Alex Smith of San Francisco and bench Vince Young, who's got a tough matchup at home against San Diego on Christmas night.
Yeah, Alex Smith, great matchup against the worst defense in terms of playing fantasy quarterbacks in the league, the Detroit Lions. They're going to San Francisco. Now, keep in mind, San Francisco, they're out of the playoff hunt, but Mike Singletary is going to have them prepared to play. Alex Smith is playing for a job next year. He's going to come out throwing the ball. He's looked good at home this season. He can be the type of guy you can throw in there if you've got a poor matchup somewhere else. In addition, Vince Young, been playing well both in the passing game and running game as of late. San Diego comes in. They're a top 10 defense in terms of limiting opposing fantasy quarterbacks. Young's going to be on short rest for this game. He's battling hamstring injuries. I expect him to make some plays, but not enough to be a reliable starter for your fantasy championship.
All right, Joe, no show coming up this Thursday, but that day, of course, being Christmas Eve. So have yourself a Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week to put a bow on the fantasy season right before we welcome in 2010. As always, Joe, terrific job. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sid. Enjoy the holiday, and I'll see you next week.
You too. Merry Christmas. Remember, you could also follow Joe on Twitter. He's at Joe Fortenbaugh for more great fantasy updates. And, of course, read his writing each and every day. It is great at nfpost.com. For my good friend Joe Fortenbaugh, I'm Sid Rosenberg. Good luck on your fantasy games this week, everybody. Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week to welcome in the new year. See you next time.